All right, let's get into it. We've all been there, right? You pour everything you have into a team project, but when it's time to give out the credit, the whole thing just feels off. Well, today, we're going to look at a really cool solution from game theory that promises a genuinely fair way to measure who really did what. And believe me, it's about way more than just counting hours. It's the big question that hangs over every single group project. Was it the person who stayed the latest? The one who had the loudest voice in meetings? Or maybe it was that quiet person in the corner who was secretly fixing everyone else's messes. You know, getting this wrong isn't just a little unfair. It can absolutely crush a team's spirit. So here's the plan. First, we'll dive into the problem itself, what we're calling the credit conundrum. Then, I'll introduce you to a pretty elegant mathematical formula for fairness. After that, we'll see how this formula was put to the test in a fascinating real-world experiment, check out the surprising data that came out of it, and finally, we'll talk about what all this could mean for making our own teams work a whole lot better. Okay, let's kick things off with the heart of the problem. Why are the ways we usually measure who did what so often, well, just plain wrong? You know, we tend to lean on the things that are easy to count, things like hours logged on a timesheet, but the stuff that actually makes a project successful, like the quality of the work, hitting deadlines, and that magical thing we call synergy, that stuff is way harder to see on a spreadsheet. We're basically measuring the effort, not the impact. So, if the old way of doing things is broken, what's the fix? Well, this is where things get really interesting. We're going to turn to the world of cooperative game theory for a brilliant little solution called the Shapley value. In plain English, the Shapley value is a mathematical way to slice up the credit pie fairly. It's smart because it doesn't just look at what you did by yourself. Instead, it calculates the exact value you added to the team in every possible scenario, with every possible combination of your teammates. And that's the big promise right there. It's not about who seemed the busiest or who has the fanciest job title. The math is designed from the ground up to make sure the credit you receive is a direct reflection of the actual, measurable impact you had on the outcome. So, how on earth does this work? It sounds complicated, but stick with me. First, imagine your team. The formula looks at every single possible subgroup. Just you and a coworker, you and two coworkers, all the way up to the entire team. Then it measures what each of those little subgroups can accomplish. Now here's the magic trick. It calculates how much better a subgroup does the moment you join it. That extra value is your marginal contribution. Finally, it just averages out your marginal contribution across every single one of those scenarios. That average is your Shapley value. It's a super thorough way of finding out your unique impact. Now, that all sounds pretty neat in theory, right? But the real question is, does this thing actually work in the messy, real world? Well, let's find out. A recent study did just that, applying the Shapley value to three very, very different teams. The researchers set up these three teams, and as you can see from this radar chart, they were totally different right from the start. You've got the dream team, whose shape is big and full. They're firing on all cylinders. Then there's the balance team, a little smaller, a bit more like a normal team. And then you have the overloaded team with that stressed-out, lopsided shape. To put it more simply, the dream team was, well, a dream. Everything just worked. The balance team was probably like most teams you've been on. Some good days, some hiccups. And the overloaded team was a full-on crisis, just constantly blocked, totally stressed out, and speeding towards burnout. And listen, this wasn't some quick and dirty survey. The study was built on a ton of data. We're talking 78 different tasks meticulously tracked over an entire month. And here's the most important part. They didn't just count hours. They tracked things that really define value, like the quality of the work, if it was on time, and how well a person could work without blocking anyone else. Okay, so the stage is set. They have the theory, they have the teams, and they have all this rich data. So what did they find? Honestly, the results were pretty stunning. The researchers boiled everything down into three massive takeaways. And these aren't just minor suggestions. These are findings that could seriously change how we think about managing and rewarding teamwork. All right, the first major finding is a bombshell, especially for any manager who still lives and dies by the timesheet. The Shapley value and the hours worked metric told two wildly different stories about who was actually valuable. I mean, just look at this data from the overloaded team. It's wild. Check out team member R1. Based on hours, they looked like a superstar. They logged almost 40% of the team's total time. But the Shapley value, which actually accounts for quality and impact, put their real contribution at just 13%. And even crazier, look at Vol2, who put in hours but added so little value that their Shapley score was basically 0. It's the perfect illustration that just being busy is not the same as being valuable. And we're not talking about a small difference here. For the Dream Team, they used a statistical measure to show the size of this gap, and the number was -852. To put that in perspective for you, in statistics, a score of 0.8 is considered a large effect. So 852? That's almost unheard of. It's basically mathematical proof that these two methods aren't just a little different. They're measuring completely different universes. The second big discovery really challenges a core idea in modern management, this belief that there's some universal recipe for creating great teamwork. While the data says, nope, not so fast. Take a look at these heat maps. The model had a diversity bonus to encourage collaboration. But what's fascinating is that the best bonus amount was totally different for each team. See how different the colors are? For the Dream Team, a big bonus supercharged their synergy. But for the overloaded team, that same bonus would have just made things worse. The takeaway is huge. You have to tailor your incentives to your team's actual situation. Okay, this might be the most powerful finding of them all. The Shapley model isn't just a report card looking at the past. It's more like a crystal ball that can help you predict when a team is about to hit a wall. Check out this graph for the overloaded team at the bottom. The lines showing each person's contribution from week to week are all over the place. They're jagged, they're volatile, with huge spikes and drops. Now compare that to the calm, gentle waves of the Dream Team up top. That chaos, you see, that's the data-driven signature of a team in crisis. It's a fire alarm going off. And what's great is that the researchers were able to put hard numbers on this, turning that visual fire alarm into specific triggers. They found concrete warning signs. For instance, if a team member's contribution starts getting too volatile, or if their performance trend suddenly drops by more than 5% in a single week, that's a data-backed signal for a manager to step in and help before the team actually burns out. So we've gone through the theory, the experiment, and the pretty incredible results. But let's bring it all back home. What does this all actually mean for our own teams and our own jobs? The big takeaway here is that we finally have tools to move beyond guesswork and just gut feelings when it comes to teamwork. By using a more data-driven approach like this, we can actually identify those hidden heroes, we can predict burnout before it happens, and we can build teams that are stronger and more motivated. So the final question I want to leave you with is this: how could a real formula for fairness completely change the game for your team?